Keanu Reeves was always known for being kind and humble. People admired him not just because he was a famous actor but because he was a good person. He always helped others, always smiled, and never acted like he was better than anyone else. But on this particular night, something happened that he never expected. It started as a normal evening. Keanu was sitting in a small diner in Los Angeles, enjoying a quiet meal. He liked places like this, small, cozy, and away from all the cameras and flashing lights. He just wanted some time to himself. Across the diner, a young waitress named Emma Harrington was working hard, rushing from table to table. Emma had been working double shifts lately. She had a 6-year-old daughter, Olivia, and life was not easy. She had to work extra hours to pay rent, buy food, and make sure Olivia had everything she needed. Tonight, she had no babysitter, so she had to bring Olivia with her to the diner. Olivia was a sweet little girl with big brown eyes and a bright smile. She was sitting at a small table in the corner, coloring in her notebook while her mother worked. She loved drawing princesses, castles, and magical creatures. Then, something unexpected happened. Olivia looked up from her drawing and saw Keanu sitting at his table. Her little face lit up with excitement. Without hesitation, she ran straight to him and said, "Daddy." The whole diner went silent. People turned their heads. Whispers spread across the room. Did Olivia just call Keanu Reeves her dad? Keanu looked up, surprised. His kind eyes met Olivia's, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. He gently smiled at her and crouched down so they were at the same level. "Hey, sweetheart," he said kindly. "Why did you call me that?" Olivia grinned and pointed at him. "Mommy showed me your picture," she said proudly. "She said you're the kindest man she ever met. And she said you look just like my daddy." Emma, who had been taking an order at another table, froze. Her heart started pounding. She turned around and saw Keanu staring at Olivia in confusion. The whispers in the diner grew louder. Everyone was watching. Emma rushed over, her face pale. "Olivia, sweetheart, come here," she said, reaching for her daughter's hand. But Olivia didn't move. She just kept looking up at Keanu with bright, hopeful eyes. Keanu looked at Emma, searching her face for answers. He didn't look angry, just confused, surprised, and maybe even a little curious. "Emma?" he asked softly. "What's going on?" Emma's hands trembled as she held her order pad. She had not seen Keanu in years. Not since that night. That night. The memory flashed in her mind like a scene from a movie. A charity event in San Francisco. A magical evening. A moment she had never forgotten. Keanu's face changed. He wasn't just surprised anymore. He was remembering something too. He looked down at Olivia again. She was twirling a lock of her hair between her fingers, waiting for an answer. Her tiny fingers curled around his sleeve. "Did you forget about me?" she asked softly. Keanu's breath caught in his chest. His heart pounded. This couldn't be true. Could it? He had met so many people in his life, traveled the world, and lived a life most people could only dream of. But this was different. He looked at Emma again. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Is this true?" Emma swallowed hard. She had thought about this moment for years, imagined what she would say if this day ever came. But she never thought it would happen like this, in the middle of a crowded diner, with people staring and whispering. Before she could answer, the bell above the diner's door jingled. More customers walked in, breaking the heavy silence. Emma took a deep breath and gently grabbed Olivia's hand. "Let's talk outside," she murmured. Keanu hesitated, then nodded. He stood up, and together they walked outside. The night air was cool and crisp. The neon sign above the diner flickered, casting a soft glow on the sidewalk. Emma crossed her arms, hugging herself. She had kept this secret for so long. Now there was no turning back. Keanu shoved his hands into his pockets, his face serious but gentle. "Emma," he said slowly, "I need to know the truth." Her chest tightened. She had carried this secret alone for 6 years. She had told herself this moment would never come. But here it was. And there was no running away now. She took a shaky breath. "Olivia is your daughter." Keanu didn't move. He didn't even blink at first. His breathing was slow, measured. Then he whispered, "That's not possible." But his voice wavered. Emma swallowed hard. "Do you remember the charity event in San Francisco?" she asked softly. "You were in town for a movie, and I was just a girl who got lost in a moment with someone I never thought I'd see again." Keanu's mind raced. Yes, he remembered that night. He remembered how they had talked for hours, how they had laughed, how everything had felt so easy, so real. He had felt something special. But then life took them in different directions. He had never seen her again. He had assumed she had moved on. But now Olivia was standing in front of him, proof that she hadn't. Keanu looked down at Olivia. She was watching them with quiet curiosity. Emma wiped her eyes. "I never told you because I didn't think you'd believe me," she admitted. "You're Keanu Reeves. You have this big life, this whole world. And I was just a waitress trying to raise a child on my own." Her voice broke. "But she's yours, Keanu. I see it every day. In her smile, in the way she looks at the world like anything is possible." Keanu inhaled deeply. His emotions swirled inside him like a storm. He looked at Olivia again. And then, without hesitation, Olivia reached for his hand. "Do you want to come to my school tomorrow?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. "We're having a play and I'm the princess." Keanu let out a breath he felt like he had been holding for 6 years. He crouched down to her level, his voice softer than it had ever been. "I'd love to." Emma let out a shaky breath. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid anymore. Keanu couldn't sleep that night. His mind was full of memories, questions, and emotions he had never felt before. Was it really possible? Could he really have a daughter? But when he closed his eyes, all he could see was Olivia's bright smile. And somehow, deep in his heart, he already knew the answer. That night, Keanu sat alone in his hotel room, staring out at the bright lights of Los Angeles. The tall buildings stretched high, their windows glowing like stars in the dark. But Keanu wasn't thinking about the city. His mind was full of big, tangled feelings. His life had always been full of surprises, but nothing had ever shocked him like this. A little girl, his little girl, had run into his arms and called him Dad. He kept hearing her voice in his head. "Dad," she had said so easily, like she had known him forever. But he hadn't known about her, not until today. Keanu leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. His thoughts drifted back to a night 6 years ago in San Francisco. He had gone to a big charity event, one of those fancy parties where people dressed up and donated money to help others. That's where he met Emma. That night felt special. With Emma, things had been easy. They talked, they laughed, and for the first time in a long time, Keanu felt something real. Something warm. But life had moved fast as it always did. He had left and so had she. And now, 6 years later, here he was, learning that he had a daughter. "Olivia," he whispered her name out loud, testing how it felt. It felt right. And that scared him. Keanu sat in his car outside Emma's apartment, gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. He had faced cameras, answered tough questions in interviews, and had millions of people watching him every day. But nothing had ever made him this nervous. What if Olivia didn't like him? What if Emma regretted telling him the truth? What if he wasn't good enough to be a dad? Before he could drive away, the front door opened. Olivia ran down the steps, her tiny tiara sparkling, her dress covered in glitter. "You came," she squealed, running straight to his car. Keanu barely had time to open the door before she climbed in, grinning up at him like she had been waiting for this moment forever. "Mommy said I could ride with you," she announced proudly. Emma appeared in the doorway, watching carefully. She hadn't slept much either. The past, the secrets, the choices she had made, they all weighed on her. Keanu met her eyes. "Are you sure?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. "She wants this." And maybe she realized, so did she. As Keanu drove, Olivia chattered nonstop. She told him about her teacher. She told him about her best friend. She told him how her favorite color changed every day. She told him about her school play and how she had a big role. Keanu listened to every word. He had been in so many cars before, limousines, sports cars, big fancy ones. But this was the most important ride of his life. When they got to school, Olivia grabbed his hand without hesitation and pulled him inside. Parents turned to look. Some recognized him. "Is that Keanu Reeves?" they whispered. But Keanu didn't care. Olivia pulled him to the front row, right next to Emma. The play started. Keanu watched as Olivia took the stage, standing tall, her tiny voice filling the room. He had seen so many performances before, but none had ever meant as much as this. Emma felt his hand brush against hers on the armrest. She froze but didn't move away. For years, she had told herself Keanu had no place in their lives. But watching him now, completely captivated by their daughter, she wasn't so sure anymore. When Olivia finished, she scanned the crowd, looking for him. The moment she spotted Keanu, she beamed. "Did you see me?" she called out, waving excitedly. Keanu stood, clapping louder than anyone. "You were amazing, princess." Emma's breath caught. It was the first time he had called her that. That night, when Keanu walked them home, Olivia hugged him tight. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" she asked, hope shining in her eyes. Keanu knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. He had never been more sure of anything in his life. "I'll be here." Olivia grinned and skipped inside. Emma lingered in the doorway, unsure what to say. Keanu rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know what happens next, he admitted. But I don't want to leave, not her, not you. Emma's heart pounded. For 6 years she had believed she was alone in this. But maybe she wasn't anymore. Then don't, she whispered. Keanu looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Keanu showed up every morning. Olivia greeted him with excited hugs and endless stories. She told him about her favorite cartoons. She told him about how she wanted to be an astronaut and a princess. She showed him a secret handshake she made just for the two of them. Emma watched from a distance, torn between awe and fear. For 6 years, she had told herself she made the right choice by keeping Olivia a secret. But watching them together, seeing the way Olivia's eyes shined when Keanu was around, she started to wonder if she had been wrong. After Olivia was asleep, Keanu sat on the couch, flipping through an old photo album Emma had left on the table. His fingers traced a picture of Olivia as a baby. I missed everything, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Emma swallowed hard. I never wanted to keep her from you. I didn't know how to tell you. Keanu looked up, his eyes full of something unspoken, regret, understanding, hope. I don't blame you, he said softly. But I don't want to miss anything else. A lump formed in Emma's throat. She had spent so long believing she had to do this alone. But now, watching Keanu sit there, completely absorbed in the life he had unknowingly created, she realized something. She didn't want to do this alone anymore. Keanu became part of their lives. He picked Olivia up from school, helped her with homework, let her paint his nails in bright colors because that's what good dads do. For the first time in years, Emma felt something unfamiliar. She felt safe. Emma and Keanu stood on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city. The air was heavy with unspoken words. Keanu finally broke the silence. Emma, what happens now? Her heart pounded. She had been avoiding this question because she was afraid of the answer. Afraid of what would happen if she let herself believe that they could be real. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Keanu turned to her, his gaze steady. I know I can't change the past. I know I can't get back the years I lost. But I can be here now, if you'll let me. Emma felt her walls start to crumble. She had spent so long guarding her heart, afraid of getting hurt. But Keanu wasn't just anyone. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to believe in something more. She met his gaze, her heart pounding. Then, softly she whispered, Stay. Keanu reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. For the first time in a long time, neither of them felt alone. Keanu didn't leave that night. He stayed on the couch even after Emma went to bed. He listened to the soft sounds of the city outside. His heart felt full of feelings he didn't expect. He had spent most of his life acting in movies, trying to find something real. But now he was in a moment that wasn't pretend. It was scary but also beautiful. The next morning he woke up to the sound of little footsteps. Before he could open his eyes, he felt small hands on his cheeks. Wake up, sleepyhead. Olivia's voice was full of excitement. She giggled, making Keanu smile. Keanu blinked and saw Olivia standing over him. Her hair was messy and her eyes were bright. I made you breakfast, she said proudly. Well, Mommy helped. Keanu sat up, rubbing his eyes. You made me breakfast? Olivia nodded fast. Pancakes, and they only got a little burnt. Emma stood in the doorway, crossing her arms with a soft smile. She insisted, Emma said, shaking her head. I had to stop her from putting sprinkles in the eggs. Keanu laughed, feeling warm inside. He followed Olivia to the kitchen. On the table was a plate of pancakes that looked a little funny, with syrup dripping down the sides. It was the best breakfast he had ever seen. As he took his first bite, Olivia climbed onto the chair next to him. So, she said, swinging her legs. Are you staying forever? Keanu almost choked on his food. He glanced at Emma, who froze with her coffee cup in her hand. Olivia didn't wait for an answer. Because I think you should, she said. We're fun. And Mommy likes you. Emma's cheeks turned pink. Olivia, she said, clearing her throat. But Keanu wasn't laughing. He put down his fork and looked at the little girl beside him. You want me to stay? He asked softly. Olivia nodded. Duh. Keanu's heart hurt a little. He had missed 6 years of her life. He had missed her first words, her first steps, her first time falling down and scraping her knee. But Olivia looked at him like he had always been there. Like she had always known him. Emma suddenly stood up, grabbing plates. Olivia, go get dressed for school. Olivia pouted but obeyed, skipping down the hall. Silence filled the kitchen. Keanu could feel Emma's hesitation. She was scared. I don't want to rush this, she finally said, not looking at him. I don't know what this is. I don't want her to get hurt. Keanu swallowed the lump in his throat. I would never hurt her. Emma met his eyes. She was looking for something. Maybe a promise, maybe an answer. Maybe even forgiveness for keeping him away for so long. I know, she whispered. That evening, Keanu tucked Olivia into bed. She pulled him close and whispered in his ear. Daddy. His breath caught. It was the first time she had said it on purpose, not by accident or in excitement. Keanu gently ran his hand over her hair. Yes, sweetheart. Olivia's voice was sleepy but certain. Promise you won't go away. Keanu's chest ached. He had spent his whole life feeling like he didn't belong anywhere. But here, in this little apartment, with this little girl in his arms, he had never felt more at home. I promise, he whispered. Emma stood in the doorway watching. She had been wrong. It wasn't just Olivia letting Keanu in, it was her too. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. He lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Olivia's words stayed in his mind. Promise you won't go away. He had always believed he was meant to be alone. That love, the real kind, was for other people. But in just a few weeks, everything had changed. A little girl had run into his arms, calling him Dad. And he had felt something he didn't even know he was missing. An Emma. Keanu turned his head, looking at her slightly open bedroom door. He could see the soft light from her lamp. He could hear the city outside her window. She had let him in little by little. But he knew she was still scared. Scared of what this meant. Scared of what would happen if he left. But he wouldn't. He couldn't. The next morning, Keanu woke up to the smell of coffee. Emma stood in the kitchen, her hair tied up. Her face was hard to read. I made extra, she said, sliding a cup toward him. Keanu took it, watching her carefully. Emma? She sighed, putting down the dish towel in her hands. I know what you're going to say. Keanu raised an eyebrow. Do you? She nodded, biting her lip. You're going to say you want to stay. That you want to be here, for her. For us. Keanu put down his cup and leaned forward. And what if I do? Emma let out a slow breath, her fingers gripping the counter. Then, I'd say I'm scared. Keanu's heart tightened. Of what? Of letting you in, she admitted. Of believing this is real. Of it all disappearing. She shook her head. I spent 6 years telling myself I was doing the right thing, raising her on my own. But now you're here. And she loves you. I don't know what to do with that. Keanu reached across the counter and gently took her hand. Then let me prove it to you, he said softly. Let me prove that I'm not going anywhere. Emma's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't pull away. At that moment, a small voice interrupted them. Mommy? They both turned. Olivia stood in the doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Keanu smiled and held out his arms. Morning, princess. Olivia grinned and ran straight into him, climbing onto his lap like she had been doing it forever. Emma watched them, something in her heart finally letting go. Maybe love wasn't about being sure. Maybe love was about trying. Maybe it was about believing in something even when it was scary. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to believe in him. Keanu kissed Olivia's hair, then looked at Emma over her head. He wasn't just saying it. He wasn't just here for now. He was staying for good. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.